The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
The High Peak series is sponsored by Gainsborough Cycles, 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop located at 20 Ropery Road, Gainsborough, or online at gainsboroughcycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gainsborough Cycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. Hello folks, welcome back to High Peak again. I've just had a bit of a white knuckle ride to get from Chisworth, which you saw yesterday, to where I am today. Now, coming across those hills, you can see some fantastic scenery into Derbyshire and into Cheshire and into Greater Manchester. There's hills all over the place. You wouldn't have been able to see much with the camera though had I filmed it. Hopefully though, this episode will make up for that, because I'm expecting there to be more fantastic scenery by the time we are done with this place. Now we're beginning in a small hamlet called Birch Vale, and in Birch Vale there's a footpath which you can see here, and this crosses the road that I'm currently stood on. This is the route of an older railway line, and if you go up there, there was a station around here. Now this railway line ran all the way into the village we're about to cover, and that village is Hayfield. Hayfield, open land where hay grows. 7 to go in High Peak, and today we hit a place that has more than a few famous names associated with it. With a population in excess of 2,500, this is the wonderful Hayfield, a village that's often considered to be the birthplace of the much-loved English soap opera Coronation Street. Hayfield is 3 miles east of the town of New Mills and 4.5 miles south of Glossop, lying in the basin of the River Set. The parish includes Hayfield itself and the hamlets of Little Hayfield and part of Birch Vale, as well as a significant proportion of the Kinder Plateau. Anecdotally, it's often described as being at the foot of Kinder Scout. 30 of its 33 square kilometres lie within the boundaries of the Peak District, but the village centre doesn't. You can split Hayfield into 2 halves, roughly, intersected by the A624. Locally referred to as the Hayfield Bypass, it has the unusual distinction of passing right through the village rather than looping around it, which is a bit odd, but there we go. The bypass was built to ease heavy traffic that once travelled through the narrow main streets of the village. On the eastern side of the bypass is the traditional village centre, including several shops, businesses and St Matthew's Parish Church, whilst the western half contains the bus station and St John's Methodist Church. In this video we'll be exploring both, but we'll be spending most of our time in the east. One of the houses on the Kinder Road is especially interesting because it was once the home of a much-loved actor who had a lead role in a classic wartime sitcom. Who was he? Well, here's a clue. Don't tell him, Pike. Let's go. The parish of Hayfield contains 2 hamlets. One of them is Little Hayfield, which has a huge connection to the ITV soap opera Coronation Street. We'll cover that at the end of this video, but let's get things started with the other hamlet, Birch Vale. Birch Vale is split between the parishes of Hayfield and New Mills. Only a small portion falls within Hayfield, but arguably it's the most important bit. Here we're close to the site of the former Birch Vale railway station. It was built in 1868 as part of a branch line linking Hayfield to Manchester. It was initially built to carry fuel to power several cotton mills in the area, although it also brought passengers to Hayfield itself. Estimates suggest that around 5,000 people each weekend would travel from Manchester between 1920 and 1930 to enjoy the countryside around Kinder Scout. After World War II, traffic slowed and eventually the line closed in 1970. The route of the line today can be walked or cycled thanks to the Set Valley Trail, which follows the old track bed. You can walk it into Hayfield, where the line terminated at Hayfield railway station. For a while there was also a short-lived continuation to the line, built in the early 20th century. Its job was to convey materials and workmen to the site of Kinder Reservoir during its construction. The line ran from Hayfield station, crossing through the old village centre and around the cricket field up the steep-sided Set Valley. Its course can still be traced in places. Now let's drive into Hayfield, and that gives us an opportunity to discuss Birch Vale's most famous daughter, none other than the TV presenter and former model Helen Daly. That name might not sound familiar, but that's because you'll all know her by her other name, Tess. Since 2004, Daly has been the co-presenter of the BBC One dancing competition show Strictly Come Dancing. Although born in Stockport in 1969, Tess Daly grew up in Birch Vale, although it's not clear which side of the Hayfield-New Mills boundary. Her father was a textile factory worker in the local area. 6 weeks after turning 18, Tess had her first professional modelling job in Tokyo. At the start of her modelling career, there was already someone in the business named Helen Daly, and so that facilitated a change of name. It came thanks to her agent, who was infatuated with Natasha Kinski from the film Tess. I guess the rest is history. Okay, so we've made it to Hayfield, and our starting point is the sports ground, which is to the north of the village. I expect this route to take us about an hour, maybe an hour and a half. It depends how busy the centre of the village actually is. When I drove through it a moment ago, it was heaving, shall we say that. We'll see what it's like when we get to it. It's about halfway around the route. So this is the sports ground then, as you can see. And at this northern end of the village, it's mainly residential. You've basically got this sports field and you've got the school and not really much else. But you know what I'm like? I'll find the beauty and the interesting bits in everything. Our main walk starts in the western half of the village at the sports field, which also features a neat little playground. The main sport in Hayfield is cricket, but the cricket club have their own area in the much older eastern half of the village. On the western side, football is the main sporting endeavour. Hayfield Football Club play on this ground. They're members of the Hope Valley Football League. Their associated junior football club participates in the Stockport Metro League. Let's cross this sports field and head towards the local school. Here's the school. When Tess Daly was growing up in Birch Vale, Hayfield provided her primary education. It wouldn't have been this building though. The current Hayfield Primary is a pretty modern building. Education in Hayfield goes back to at least 1888 when a board school was established in the village. Its records are held by the Derbyshire Record Office. This school replaced the former Hayfield County Primary, which today is Primrose Court, just north of the Packhorse pub. The modern school is now part of the Peak Edge Group of Schools, or PEGS for short. That's a collaborative effort to improve educational opportunities in the area. PEGS envisions itself as a sharing, caring community stronger together, with the goal of positively influencing the education of children in the wider community. Okay, the next job is to get ourselves down towards the bus station, which is a bus station these days, but it didn't used to be. It used to be something a bit different. We'll discuss what that is when we eventually reach it. Between here and there, though, there's a lot of residential property. Hayfield is not a small village these days. From this point, for quite a distance, it's all residential. That gives us a chance to fill in a lot of history about Hayfield. Some kind of settlement has been in existence here since Roman times and possibly before. The area was once woodland, but this was largely cleared to allow for sheep farming. The village lies on the line of a Roman road from Buxton to Glossop. It's also on an important former packhorse route between Cheshire and Yorkshire. The village provided refuge for traders travelling from Castleton and Edale to Marple, Glossop and Stockport. In the Domesday Book, Hayfield appears as Headfelt, and Kinder, which is the area to the east of it, was recorded separately as Chendra. It was included in the Royal Forest of the Peak in medieval times, but was never a parish until it was created so by Richard II. Hayfield's location and nearby geography made it an isolated and practically self-sufficient village until the Industrial Revolution, somewhat unlike other areas. Hayfield lacked a feudal lord or stately home, although tithes were paid to the Abbot of Basingstoke in North Wales. You'll recall the connection to North Wales in this area from the Charlesworth episode. During the 16th century, Cutler's Green, which is now a campsite and formerly the site of Kinder Printworks Mill, was known for its links to the cutlery trade. The only reason it declined is because Sheffield soon became dominant in that area. Eventually, woolen manufacturing became the main industry here, and the propensity towards three-storied terraced houses within the village reflects this. The top floors of the houses would have been where looms were used, purely because they offered better light. As with most northern English villages, the Industrial Revolution brought rapid expansion and the creation of several cotton mills. There were lots of them within Hayfield, along with numerous fabric printing and dyeing businesses. Paper manufacture was also a big thing here too. It wasn't long before Hayfield became a spinning, weaving and calico printing powerhouse. So it looks like a stream, but trust me, that's the River Set. It's not all that big just there. It does get a little bit bigger. We will see it a couple of times on this walk, in fact. Let's continue along this footpath. This will cross the Set via a bridge and it'll take us towards that bus station. Aha. Now we're at the bus station, but until 1970 this area of Hayfield was dealing with another form of transport. This is where Hayfield railway station was located, at the end of the same branch line that Birch Vale station was on. The line's closure was one of the last recommended in 1963 by Richard Beeching's rationalisation programme. Despite often congested roads in and out of the Manchester conurbation, Hayfield remains a magnet for those who enjoy outdoor pursuits, even though they cannot get here by rail anymore. That said, catching a bus to the village is something you can definitely do. Hayfield has regular bus services to Glossop, Chapel-on-le-Frith, New Mills, Buxton and Stockport. You can also walk to Hayfield if you want. The Set Valley Trail, which follows the old trackbed, is a popular 2.5-mile linear recreational route. This bus station at the eastern end of it is often visited by many walkers and horse riders because from this point a lot of them continue on to Kinder Scout. Okay, so the site of the old railway station, which is now the bus station, is actually on the wrong side of the village, if you know what I mean by that, because the bypass is right in the middle of it and the main village centre, which is over there. Now, to get between the two, you've got several options. One way is to use this subway. Now, I'm led to believe that not many people actually do that. They prefer to cross up there, and that's what we're going to do. We're heading that way anyway, because next is a chapel. Methodism has always been a prominent branch of religion in Hayfield. This here is St John's Methodist Church, which dates from 1782. Because it dates back so far, it claims to be the 13th Methodist church ever built. It was visited by John Wesley, who may well have opened this church personally. Wesley's diaries show he took a particular interest in Hayfield, declaring that he found uncommon liberty in preaching when holding a service before the church was built. Although the building has been added to since its initial construction, the four walls of the main church are entirely original. It's a Grade 2 listed building. Okay, so now we need to cross the Hayfield bypass, which is the strangest bypass ever. From 1939 onwards, various schemes were put forward to reduce the amount of traffic passing through the narrow main streets of the old village. They were prompted by various accidents over the years, most notably a crash in 1969 that killed 2 villagers. Construction of a relief road through the village finally began in October 1977, and the road opened in December 1978. The new road splits the community into 2 pieces now, running adjacent to the old village centre in the east and cutting off the western side. Originally, the national speed limit applied on this part of the route, but traffic is now restricted to 40 miles an hour. Crossing the bypass can be done in 2 ways, either by a pedestrian crossing or by the original method, that subway, which today is little used. Okay, we've made it to Valley Road. Now, at the end of Valley Road, there's a sign for motorists that quite clearly states, no access to Kinder Road. Well, that's for traffic, and we are on foot. There are several ways you can get to Kinder Road on foot, and the way we're going to use is the one that crosses the cricket pitch, which is somewhere behind those trees. Now we're in the eastern side of Hayfield, where most of the village features can be found. One of them is the River Set, which we're crossing here using a small bridge. The Set rises near Edale Cross on Kinder Scout and flows through Hayfield and Birch Vale before joining the River Goyt at New Mills. In turn, the Goyt is one of the principal tributaries of the River Mersey. In the past, the Set was known as the River Kinder, but today the modern River Kinder is a tributary of the Set, joining it at Bowden Bridge above Hayfield. Keep the Set in mind, it'll become a lot more important later. Using that bridge, we found our way to the cricket field. This is where Hayfield Cricket Club play. The club was founded in 1859 and currently competes in the Derbyshire and Cheshire Cricket League. The ground, which is located next to the Royal Hotel, was purchased by the club in 1976. However, that purchase couldn't have happened without a famous former Hayfield resident adding £5,000 from his own pocket. The man himself lived at number 63 Kinder Road. Who was he? Let's find out. Number 63 Kinder Road is this house here. On its wall is a blue plaque that tells you it was the former home of the actor Arthur Lowe. Lowe was famed for his role as Captain George Mannering in the sitcom Dad's Army. He was born and brought up in Hayfield, and the plaque was unveiled at his home on Kinder Road in 2011. Although born in Birmingham, Lowe's wife, the actress Joan Cooper, lived in Hayfield until her death in 1989. Arthur Lowe's career spanned some 37 years, including starring roles in numerous theatre and television productions. He played Captain Mannering in Dad's Army from 1968 until 1977, and as a result was nominated for 7 BAFTAs. In the role, he became one of the most recognised faces on UK television. A bank manager by profession, Mannering was a fictional captain and commander in charge of the Home Guard platoon at Warmington-on-Sea during World War II. Lowe absolutely owned the role, and even today, some of Mannering's best-known phrases are instantly recognisable. His best-known line is one that involves Private Pike, played by Ian Lavender. In an episode of the sitcom called The Deadly Attachment, there's a rare encounter between the platoon and the Germans. In one scene, a German officer demands to know Private Pike's name, and Mannering says, "Don't tell him, Pike." The scene has been judged one of the top 3 greatest comedy moments of British television ever. Many of Mannering's lines are ingrained in British popular culture. In 2001, a Channel 4 poll ranked Mannering 21st on their list of 100 greatest TV characters. Lowe began acting professionally in England in 1945 after army service in World War II. He worked in theatre, film and television throughout the 1950s, but it wasn't until he landed the part of Leonard Swindley in the television soap Coronation Street in 1960 that he came to national attention. He played the character until 1965 while continuing theatre and other acting work. In 1968, he took on his role in Dad's Army. Despite increasingly poor health in his final years, he maintained a busy professional schedule until his death from a stroke in 1982, aged 66. And I can't tell you how many times growing up that my dad used to use another one of his famous quotes. "You stupid boy." Back to the route, and within just a few steps of Lowe's house is Hayfield Library, although as you can probably tell, this used to be a chapel. This was originally the Hugh Bourne Primitive Methodist Chapel, built on Kinder Road in 1867. At the time, Kinder Road was alternatively titled Jumble Lane. Deconsecrated in 1969, its congregation merged with St John's and the building became Hayfield Library. There were other chapels around Hayfield too, aside from this and St John's. Bethel Methodist Church was founded in 1836, and a dedicated church was built on Walk Mill in 1867 and deconsecrated in 1956. Little Hayfield also had its own primitive Methodist chapel too, built in 1851 and deconsecrated in 1975. Next we come to the Royal Hotel, which has a very interesting and unique history. Originally built in 1755 by the parishioners of Hayfield for the then vicar, the Reverend John Badley, it was a lovely place with gardens all around stretching down to the banks of the River Set. Badley died in 1764 and the parsonage was then turned into a public house known as the Shoulder of Mutton. It was later owned by the local squire, Captain John White of Park Hall. White, who was a pillar of the church, converted the place once again into a parsonage and allowed the vicar of Hayfield to live there rent-free. The Reverend John Brock, who died in 1863, was the last vicar to reside in the building. In 1865, the parsonage was turned back into a public house, this time named the Royal Hotel. At present, it's unoccupied, but hopefully this will change soon. The War Memorial is right outside the hotel's main entrance. This one has a total of 71 names on it. 56 of them are the men who died in World War I, and 9 of them are the men who died in World War II. The other 6 are civilians, which is a little unusual. There is, though, a story behind them. On the 3rd of July 1942, a stray bomb which was intended for Manchester was instead dropped on a row of terraced houses in Hayfield. 6 people died, and the names of those people all feature on this memorial with the servicemen. During World War II, several evacuees from all over the country were housed in Hayfield, by the way. Okay, now we are in the centre of the village. Now behind me there, you can see a building that used to be a pub. That used to be called the Bull's Head. Let's talk a bit about this. Until recently, there was some dispute as to which pub was the oldest in the village. On the main street, the two which were most recently vying for the honour are within easy walking distance of each other. However, now there is no contest because the Bull's Head closed in 2012 and became this house. It's believed to have been established in around 1386, but the chances are it wasn't a pub originally. Now it's closed, the George Hotel stands alone as the oldest. That was established in 1575. Let's head towards it. Between them, there's a fair few shops and facilities. Hayfield's expansion during the Industrial Revolution saw it sport a total of 17 public houses. It now only has 4, which are the Sportsman, the Packhorse, Kinder Lodge and the George Hotel. There were dozens of small shops too at one time, along with a gasworks. Only a handful of shops remain, but take it from me, the ones that are left are thriving. I kind of wish you could smell what I could too at this point. The local chippy was giving off a fabulous aroma. So here we are at the George Hotel. This was the coaching house of the village and served a coach that ran often between Holmfirth and Buxton. Hayfield in those days had a direct connection with Holmfirth because it was the custom for the woolen factories in the village to send pack horses laden with wool to Holmfirth to have it dyed. The George is also known for the tale of the witch, Sussanah Huggin, who was hauled and pelted with all manner of stuff right here. Huggin sold wooden weaving pins and bewitching charms. An old sailor bought one of these and promptly vanished, although Huggin was subsequently found to be in possession of the charm again. The villagers blamed her for the disappearance, and she was dragged before the George pub and pelted with rotten fruit and stones, almost killing her. Somebody from a local farm then took the charm, but after a series of disasters, including milk not churning and animals not feeding, it was reluctantly exorcised by Reverend Badley. Now I'm sure it's not escaped your attention that Hayfield is surrounded by some beautiful scenery, and within that scenery there are plenty of hills. One of those is the Kinder Scout Plateau, and where there's hills there's usually a mountain rescue team, and Hayfield is the perfect place for one of those. You can see it right behind me there. Hayfield is a popular walking and mountain biking centre, as well as being a traditional starting point for the ascent of Kinder Scout. In fact, the village lies directly on the Pennine Bridleway long-distance route, part of which follows the Set Valley Trail. The Peak District Boundary Walk runs through Hayfield on the route of the Pennine Bridleway. The village contains a high number of other public rights-of-way, which are legacies of the pre-industrial days. They provided the only ways in and out of the area. Nowadays, with many of them being walked on for leisure purposes, it makes sense that Hayfield has this building, the base of the Kinder Mountain Rescue Team. Turning back north now, we have the Conservative Club next, before we encounter the Village Hall. Hayfield Village Hall first opened its doors in April 1965. It was built with funds raised by villagers and village organisations. It is still quite literally owned by the village. It's available for hire for anyone, be it individuals or organisations. It can be hired on a regular basis or just for one-off events. Currently, the WI and various yoga and Pilates groups are regulars, but the hall is also used by local artists, pop-up shops, coffee mornings and kids' parties. So these are the Village Hall gardens, and this is a public open space, so I've got every right to be here. It's a good job I have, actually, because there are two things you get a really good view of from these gardens. One of them is a magnificent waterfall. Look at this. Let's see if we can get a bit closer to it. We can get into this little area here, I think. Oh, maybe not. No, that's locked, unfortunately. Can't get into that, never mind. But you can still see the waterfall from here. That's absolutely incredible, fantastic. Could stay there all day and watch that. The other thing is our next landmark, and that is the church. The parish church of St Matthew has existed in its present location since 1386. However, it wasn't fully completed until 1405. It previously stood at Kirksteads, which is the name given to the area where the rivers Kinder and Set meet each other near Bowden Bridge. The church is a Grade 2 listed building. Most of it today is a result of a rebuilding between 1817 and 18, although remnants of the earlier building are still visible in the crypt. The tower was built in 1793 and was raised in 1894. The interior is galleried on three sides and contains a notable monument of 1786 to Joseph Haig, which was moved here from the church in Glossop. On the 31st of August 1745, James Clegg, the minister of a Presbyterian church at Chapel on Lifrith, wrote to the Glossopdale Chronicle reporting that hundreds of bodies rose out of the grave in the open air from the graveyard of St Matthew's Church. They then proceeded, apparently, to disappear, leaving Dr. Clegg to remark, "What is become of them, or in what distant region of this vast system they have since fixed their residence, no mortal can tell." Who knows? Maybe they still roam around Hayfield to this day. This building, close to the bridge over the River Set at Church Street, is an old bank. No money changes hands here now though. Today, it's a doctor's surgery. And dead opposite the old bank surgery, we have a parish notice board. You know what that means by now, people in High Peak. That is another one down in the district. We have 6 more to go. Now, let's continue around this corner. We still have another pub to see yet. With a name that harks back to the days of horsepower in the Derbyshire hills, this is the Packhorse Hotel. It's one of the oldest buildings in the village, first appearing in records in 1577. It sits on the former Packhorse route. Horses could be exchanged or hired at this hotel, and refreshments were supplied to their drivers. Several of the horses were referred to as galls, which was short for Galloway in Ireland, where they originally came from. On the walk back to the car, let's throw in some more facts we haven't been able to fit in elsewhere. As well as spinning and weaving, other local industries around Hayfield included stone quarrying and millstone manufacturing once upon a time. Some quarrying still takes place within the surroundings of the village. Clog making, charcoal burning and domestic implement manufacture also took place in Hayfield too. Industrial decline eventually saw Hayfield return to its original status of a quiet rural village. Despite the decline, several new housing developments were built in the western half of the village in the latter part of the 20th century, increasing the population substantially. Even though this mass growth has transformed the place again, Hayfield remains a popular area in which to live. Nowadays, it's considered a thriving Peak District village with a strong community spirit. Many residents work outside of Hayfield in nearby Stockport and Manchester, or in neighbouring towns and villages. Hayfield does still have a handful of local businesses providing employment, although these are mainly farms. An annual May Queen procession is held in the village each year in May, as were sheepdog trials at nearby Little Hayfield in September until 2019. Well dressing has recently been introduced here, bringing it in line with other similar festivals in Derbyshire. There used to be an annual jazz festival in Hayfield too, but that was last held in 1989. In 2012 and 2014, Hayfield was a key filming location for the BBC One drama series, The Village. Some famous people have lived in Hayfield. We've already learned about Arthur Lowe and Tess Daly, but there are others. Among the number is footballer Frank Thorpe, who won the FA Cup with Bury in 1903. He was born in Hayfield in 1879. Hayfield is also associated with Rob Hales, the former Olympic sprint cyclist, and his wife Vicky Horner, herself a former Olympic swimmer. Well, what a thoroughly fantastic walk around the parish of Hayfield. Some fantastic landmarks, including that amazing waterfall. Couldn't get enough of the river set, to be honest with you. We saw it several times, didn't we? We're not done with this one just yet, though. We still have two pieces of driving to do. First of all, we're going to head up towards Kinder Plateau. We're going to talk a bit about the mass trespass of Kinder Scout and of course Kinder Reservoir, which is up in the hills. And then we're going to go to a place called Little Hayfield. And that little tiny village is where Coronation Street apparently was born. This is the rest of Kinder Road, which for cars is a dead end at its easternmost extent. We're going to follow it though until we reach Bowden Bridge. Beyond that, vehicular access is restricted. Nonetheless, by driving this road, we do at least pass the Sportsman. Northeast of the village, beyond Bowden Bridge, lies Kinder Reservoir, which is within a short distance of the Kinder Plateau. The reservoir controls the flow of the River Kinder, thereby avoiding the risk of flooding that had previously been a serious problem within Hayfield village. Indeed, the flood risk necessitated raising the height of the main street. The reservoir lies at the head of the Kinder Valley, 278 metres above sea level. It's owned by the United Utilities Group. The reservoir supplies drinking water and has a storage capacity of 2,340,000 cubic metres. In terms of surface area, it covers 180,000 square metres. It was built by the Stockport Corporation and its chief engineer was Abram Kellett of Ealing. The site above Hayfield was selected by James Manser and it was constructed between 1903 and 1911. It was officially opened on the 11th of July 1912. There's a public car park at Bowden Bridge, which is about 1.5 kilometres down the valley from the reservoir. Footpaths from here provide a circular walk of about 4 kilometres around the water feature. Here's a bit about the rest of the Kinder Plateau, which dominates the eastern side of the parish. You can't mention the plateau without first talking about Kinder Scout. At 636 metres above sea level, it is the highest point in the Peak District. Part of the plateau was designated as a National Nature Reserve in 2009. Much of the area is owned and managed by the National Trust as part of its High Peak estate. The city of Manchester and the Greater Manchester conurbation can be seen from the western edges, as can Winter Hill near Bolton, and in good weather, the mountains of Snowdonia in North Wales. The name Kinder was first recorded in the Domesday Survey as Chendra, and it's of obscure meaning. It's believed to be pre-English in origin. Scout is an old word for a high, overhanging rock, derived from the Norse scoot. It refers to the cliffs on the western side of the plateau. Kinder Downfall is the tallest waterfall in the Peak District. It's 30 metres high and lies on the River Kinder, where it flows west over one of the gritstone cliffs on the plateau's edge. Although usually little more than a trickle in the summer, in spate conditions it is impressive. In certain wind conditions, the water is blown back on itself and the resulting cloud of spray can be seen from several miles away. In cold winters, the waterfall freezes, providing local mountaineers with an icy challenge that can be climbed with ice axes, ropes and crampons. Below the downfall, the River Kinder flows into Kinder Reservoir. Close by is the Mermaid's Pool. This is a small pool below Kinder Downfall, and it's said, according to legend, to be inhabited by a mermaid who will grant immortality upon whoever sees her on Easter Eve. Elsewhere is Jacob's Ladder. In the 18th century, Jacob Marshall farmed the land at Edale Head, at the top of what became known as Jacob's Ladder. He cut steps into this steep section of the route up to the Kinder Plateau. The name is a reference to the ladder to heaven that Jacob dreamt about in the book of Genesis. Some of Kinder's many gritstone cliffs were featured in the first rock climbing guide to the Peak District, Some Gritstone Climbs, published in 1913 and written by John Laycock. The Edale Cross lies immediately south of Kinder Scout, under Kinder Lowe, and on the former Hayfield to Edale Road. It marks the former junction of the three wards of the Forest of Peak: Glossop and Longdendale, Hopedale and Campania. The first cross on the site may have been set up by the abbots of Basingwark Abbey to mark the southern boundary of their land in 1157. Kinder is also known for the mass trespass which took place in 1932. This was a protest which sought to highlight that walkers were denied access to areas of open countryside which had been fenced off by wealthy landowners. It was organised by communist leader and Jewish anti-fascist Benny Rothman, the secretary of the British Workers' Sports Federation and a member of the Young Communist League. Although the mass trespass was a controversial strategy at the time, the imprisonment of some of the trespassers led to public outrage, which increased public support for open access land. Some of the trespassers went on to become successful activists and politicians, and some later died fighting against fascism during the Spanish Civil War. Many details of the event have been heavily debated by historians. Accounts of the numbers involved vary widely. A Times article at the time reported it was about 100, but Benny Rothman claimed it was between 600 and 800. Poet and folk singer Ewan MacColl, who participated in the walk and wrote a song sung by the walkers, remembered it as over 3,000. The generally accepted figure is that reported by the Manchester Guardian at the time, an estimated 400 people. The trespassers began at Bowden Bridge Quarry. They proceeded via William Clough to the plateau of Kinder Scout, where there were violent scuffles with gamekeepers. The ramblers were able to reach their destination and meet with another group at Ashop Head. On the return, 5 ramblers were arrested, with another detained earlier. Trespass was not and is not a criminal offence in England, but some received jail sentences of 2 to 6 months for the offences relating to violence involving the gamekeepers. This act of civil disobedience was one of the most successful in British history. It arguably led to the passage of the National Parks legislation in 1949 and helped pave the way for the establishment of the Pennine Way and other long-distance footpaths. Each year, a combination of wardens and rangers from both the National Trust and the Peak District National Park Authority hold a walking event to mark the anniversary of the trespass. A commemorative plaque now marks the start of the trespass at Bowden Bridge. It was unveiled in 1982 by Benny Rothman himself. Now, before we can leave Hayfield Parish behind us, we have to talk about the other small hamlet within its boundaries. That would be Little Hayfield. Let's have a look. Okay, so Little Hayfield has got 3 landmarks of interest. 2 of them are kind of connected together, the other one is in between them. Here is the first one. This is the Lantern Pike. It's a pub, as you can see, and it's apparently in this building where Coronation Street was first devised. Step inside the walls of the Lantern Pike Inn today and you'll be met with a lot of memorabilia relating to the popular ITV soap Coronation Street. You see, Coronation Street creator and scriptwriter Tony Warren is known to have spent some time in Little Hayfield, and he had a particular connection with this pub. It's said that he created the soap right here, writing the first 6 episodes within the walls of this place in 1960. Inside, there's an affectionate signed letter from Tony Warren himself and some portraits of some of the cast. Some of Coronation Street's actors and actresses have lived in Hayfield Parish. Pat Phoenix, famous for portraying the legendary Elsie Tanner, lived in Little Hayfield at the same time as Tony Warren. The Lantern Pike Inn displays lots of memorabilia relating to her. Other actors seen in the soap that have lived here include Ernst Walder and Kenneth Cope, as well as the show's producer Bill Podmore. The Lantern Pike Inn itself has been an inn since 1851. The pub dates from the building of the turnpike from Old Glossop to Buxton in 1792. Otherwise, Little Hayfield is a simple little hamlet. It's effectively 2 roads, one running from north to south and the other from east to west. Let's head west towards the other major landmark in this place. Okay, we're almost at the other end of the village, and when you get there, you're faced with this magnificent building. Check this out. That there, my friends, is Clough Mill. Only one former mill still stands in Hayfield Parish. This is it. Clough Mill was a water-powered and later steam-powered textile mill, which was converted to apartments in 1989. An impressive 4- and 5-storey gritstone mill building, probably dating in part from the 1830s, it was one of 3 mills which were located on a small tributary of the River Set. The western end has a pitched roof of local stone and would seem to be substantially earlier than the main body of the mill itself. Things such as winches and notices remain from its cotton spinning days, and the mill is in reasonable condition despite the apparent lack of use. Some of the adjacent housing in Little Hayfield could have been associated with the mill workers. It was formerly the cotton spinning mill of Hibbert and Alcock, although it was owned by the Slack family. An OS map of 1898 shows a number of buildings and a mill pond. There's also a leat on the east side of the mill running south from a possible earlier mill pond site, which by 1898 had silted up. These were all predated by an original water-powered mill built in the 1790s at the western end, and today that section of the building is labelled the Wheelhouse on maps. From the mill, a footpath leads to the summit of Lantern Pike, which is our final landmark in this amazing little parish. Now, once you get beyond the mill, you can use a footpath that goes up into Lantern Pike, which is the big hill that's behind me. And of course, that's what gives the pub its name. Weirdly, the best way to see Lantern Pike is not by climbing it, it's actually by walking away from it and seeing it from a distance. So what we're going to do now is going to turn around and head back up the road towards the pub, and I'll catch some shots of it from there. I'm certainly not climbing it. Lantern Pike is a hill, and although it's not as prominent or as well known as Kinder Scout, it still attracts hill walkers. It lies within the Peak District and is owned and maintained by the National Trust. It's permanently open to the public, so there will never be a mass trespass here. According to Ordnance Survey, it's 373 metres above sea level at its summit. According to the booklet 10 Walks Around Hayfield, published by the Peak District National Park Authority, the name Lantern Pike probably comes from the hill's use as a beacon. It's often considered a continuation of nearby Kinder Scout. The Peak District boundary walk runs south to north past the summit, and the Pennine Bridleway crosses the eastern flank of the hill. And there we go, we are all the way around the parish of Hayfield. What a beautiful place this really is, and when the sun comes out it just looks even better, doesn't it? Thoroughly enjoyed this one, and I thoroughly recommend you check it out too. Time for me though to disappear. And there you have it everyone, we have visited the village considered to be the birthplace of Coronation Street and learned so much about its connections to Tess Daly and Arthur Lowe. You could say in fact that Hayfield is very much a TV themed village. We have 6 to go in High Peak, join me here again soon to see what's coming next. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.